"You sure about this?" she said, arms crossed, lips curled, eyes full of theater. It wasn't a question. Not really. Not with 30 people watching. Not with her tone sharpened like she'd practiced it in front of the mirror. I didn't answer. I was too busy trying to remember when her voice started sounding like an audience clapping for itself. We were in the middle of Ezra's birthday party. Fake grass underfoot, fairy lights overhead, a Bluetooth speaker pumping out 2010s nostalgia. I had just finished my second plastic cup of warm sangria when she decided to flip the script of our marriage in front of the entire guest list. "Either stay and act like a man," she said, loud enough for the bartender to flinch, "or leave and prove everyone right." No one laughed, but no one stopped her either. Someone spilled a drink behind me. Another person took out their phone, not to record, but maybe to pretend this wasn't happening. And there she stood, my wife, Mairead, in her sparkly heels and weaponized smile, waiting for the scene to end the way she'd written it in her head. I didn't know what to say, not because I was stunned, but because, somehow, I wasn't. I had known something like this was coming. I just didn't expect it to be so public, so clean, so final. The worst part? She wasn't even mad. This wasn't rage. This was performance. This was her moment. And I was just the prop who forgot his line. So I did the only thing I could. I walked past her, past the gazes, past the people who once smiled at me like I mattered, past the playlist, the lights, the patio heat lamp buzzing, and I left, without a bag, without a ride, without a single word. And she didn't call after me, because she knew exactly what she was doing. And I think so did I. The sound of the gate swinging shut behind me should have felt like freedom, but it didn't. It felt like a dare, like walking offstage mid-performance and waiting to hear if anyone clapped, or if they just went on without you. The street was strangely quiet, the kind of quiet that lets your brain get loud. My footsteps on the sidewalk sounded heavier than usual, probably because my whole chest was caving in. I didn't even know where I was going. I left my keys in her purse. My jacket was still slung over the back of a chair. My phone, dead as usual. I just kept walking, one block at a time, passing houses with porch lights on and strangers laughing behind windows like the world hadn't just split open in front of a rented bartender. I kept thinking, did she plan it that way? Was that always going to be the night? You have to understand something about Mairead. She doesn't do chaos unless she's in control of it. Every word that left her mouth was measured, not messy. That line she delivered, "Stay and act like a man or leave and prove everyone right." That was crafted, not blurted. Not emotional. That was loaded ammo she'd been saving for the perfect moment. And she picked a party full of our mutual friends to fire it. What hurt the most wasn't that she said it. It's that no one tried to stop her. No one pulled her aside. No one looked shocked. They just stared at me like I'd finally been caught. As if they knew something I didn't. Or worse, as if they all agreed. I ended up at a gas station about 10 blocks away, still unsure how I got there. I stood under the buzzing fluorescent lights like some washed-up sitcom character, holding a warm bottle of water and a pack of gum, just to feel like I had a purpose. The clerk didn't even look up. I guess heartbreak doesn't make a sound. I sat on the curb outside for a long time, trying to replay the moment, wondering when exactly I gave her permission to humiliate me. Maybe it wasn't that night. Maybe it was all the other nights, when she made comments that felt like paper cuts and I laughed like they were jokes. Maybe it was every time I apologized first, even when I didn't know what I was apologizing for. Maybe it was when I started whispering around her just to keep the peace, instead of speaking like I had a spine. The worst part? I missed her. Not the woman from the party. Not the cold, sharp version of her that weaponized my silence. But the one I remembered from 4-5 years ago. The one who used to sit on the kitchen counter and read out loud from terrible advice columns while we cooked pasta at 11 p.m. The one who once said she loved how I made everything feel safe. I don't know when that version of her died, or if she ever existed. Maybe she was just better at pretending than I was. But that night, sitting alone under a flickering street lamp with gum in my pocket and glass in my heart, I realized something that knocked the air out of me. She didn't want me to stay. She wanted me to leave. Just like that. Just like everyone else eventually had. And this time, I finally did. I didn't go back home that night. I wandered until my legs ached, until the shadows on the pavement stretched long and thin, and even the streetlights looked tired. When I finally stopped, I found myself sitting in an empty parking lot behind an old strip mall, eating a vending machine Snickers bar like it was my last meal. I remember watching the wrapper flutter in the breeze and thinking, is this what freedom feels like? It wasn't. Freedom's not supposed to taste like guilt. By sunrise, I had made one decision. I wouldn't message her first. Not this time. No long apology texts. No can we talk? No pathetic gifs or passive-aggressive likes on her stories. I wasn't going to chase her. I was tired of chasing someone who only ever slowed down to watch me trip. The silence lasted 27 hours. On hour 28, I cracked. Of course I did. I didn't call. That would have been too honest. Instead, I logged into our shared food delivery account and ordered her favorite breakfast, that dumb overpriced oatmeal she always got with extra cinnamon and blueberries. I scheduled it for 8 a.m., right when I knew she'd be getting ready for work. I didn't add a note. I didn't need to. She'd know it was from me. At 8:11, I got the notification, order delivered. At 8:14, she posted a story, a photo of the oatmeal on our kitchen table, sunlight hitting it perfectly, and her caption? Some people only know how to say sorry when it's edible. No tag, no heart emoji, just that. Like she wanted the world to see her as the calm, witty one, and me as the one scrambling for crumbs. That was the moment I realized something gut-wrenching. Mairead didn't just want space. She wanted an audience. And the worst part? She'd been rehearsing this role long before the party. See, there were things she did when no one else was around. Small things. Quiet cruelty. Like the time she corrected my grammar in front of her mother, twice, while I was just trying to compliment her cooking. Or the way she'd forget to tell me about social events until the night of, then act annoyed when I didn't dress right. There was even a time I overheard her on the phone with her friend Louisa, saying, he's not a bad guy, just, I don't know, weak? Like, emotionally beige. Emotionally beige. I didn't even know what that meant until I looked it up later that night. And then I couldn't stop thinking about it. For days. Weeks. I tried to be more interesting after that. Bought cologne. Read books with difficult titles. Started using phrases like tactile experience and liminal space, hoping she'd notice. She didn't. Or maybe she did, and just liked watching me squirm in smarter words. I wish I could tell you that the party was the beginning of the end. But it wasn't. The end started earlier, in the quieter moments, where love dies but no one notices because it's still technically breathing. And now? Now she's probably still sitting in that kitchen, finishing her oatmeal, planning the next punchline. And I'm here, still waiting for someone to ask me the real question. Why did I stay so long when I knew I was already gone? I hadn't planned on going back to the apartment. I told myself I was done, that I'd figure something out. Crash at Dylan's, maybe rent a place for a month, sleep in my car if I had to. But then Tuesday came, and I remembered my passport was still in the drawer next to her side of the bed. And like a spineless idiot, I figured if I went during lunch when she'd be out, I could get in and get out without reopening the wound. The door code hadn't changed. That detail shouldn't have hurt, but it did. It meant she hadn't felt the need to keep me out. Or maybe she wanted me to walk through that door and see what she'd become without me. I didn't knock. I just stood there for a minute before stepping inside, greeted by the faint smell of eucalyptus and bleach, like she'd scrubbed the place clean of me but wanted it to smell calm. Like a hotel lobby right after a crime scene. The apartment looked the same, but off. She'd moved the bookshelf 2 feet to the left. Replaced the photo of us in Prague with a minimalist print that just said, "Quiet is power." The kind of quote you'd find in an Instagram post about cutting off dead weight. I grabbed my passport and was halfway out the door when I noticed her laptop was open on the couch, screen glowing, lid barely propped. It was instinct, not curiosity. I swear. I didn't mean to look, but I did. It was a Google document title, Draft, the Jonah chapter. At first, I thought it was something creative. Mairead had always flirted with writing, short essays, blog posts no one asked for, dramatic captions about coffee that read like breakup letters. But this was different. It wasn't fiction. It was me. Every paragraph was a dissection. Bullet points, quotes, stories twisted just enough to sound like truth from a different angle. There was an entire section labeled, things he did that seemed small but weren't. She even had timestamps. Screenshots. Exaggerations spun like spiderwebs. Just enough fact to feel real. Just enough lie to make me the villain in a story I never agreed to be in. She had notes like, use the oatmeal moment in the opening. Symbol of how he uses gestures to mask guilt. Build sympathy with the "I stayed too long" angle. Make it empowering. Don't make him evil. Make him forgettable. Forgettable. That one word did something to me. More than any insult ever had. She wasn't trying to make people hate me. She wanted them to erase me. Smooth me out of the narrative like a crease ironed from a dress. Just a wrinkle in her journey. And the worst part? The document had sharing enabled. Someone else had already left comments. I closed the lid like it burned me and stood there in the silence, my heart thudding so loud I thought the neighbors would hear. That's when I realized this wasn't about a breakup. This was about authorship. She wasn't moving on. She was curating the story. And I had just stumbled into her private editing room. I should have walked away. But instead, I opened the lid again. And what I saw next changed everything. I didn't mean to scroll. I didn't. But my hands were already moving before my brain caught up. That numb, detached autopilot you feel when something is so surreal, so off-script, that you can't tell whether you're invading someone's privacy or finally understanding your own story. The document was 33 pages long. I couldn't read it all. I couldn't breathe long enough to. So I scrolled to the comments, heart pounding, vision tunneling. There were 5, all from the same Google account, a name I recognized immediately, J. Breyer. And that's when my stomach turned. J. Breyer wasn't some anonymous friend or online peer giving editing notes. J. Breyer was her therapist, or at least the person she said was her therapist. A few months back, Mairead had started working through things with someone online, a trauma-informed coach, she said, someone who understood complex emotional dynamics in modern relationships. I remember her saying the phrase like she was auditioning for a TED Talk. I didn't question it. We were already fragile, and if it gave her stability, fine. But now here I was, staring at therapy notes turned into literature, and the coaching didn't sound therapeutic at all. It sounded collaborative, like they were building something together. Comment from J. Breyer. You're hitting something powerful here. Lean into the emotional invisibility motif. Make him the ghost in your story. Ghost. The word hit like a brick to the chest. I wasn't a villain. Not even a cautionary tale. I was set dressing. A symbol. A plot device in her curated evolution. Another comment, this one worse. You're giving him too much interiority in this section. Remember, your readers need to see you emerge. He can't be complicated. That muddies the arc. I wanted to slam the laptop shut again. I didn't. Instead, I opened the sharing tab. There were 3 more people listed. 2 names I didn't recognize. One I did. Dahlia, the friend who hosted the vision board party. The same one who laughed the hardest when Mairead gave me that ultimatum. The same one who once cried in our kitchen over a breakup and thanked me for being the only man who'd ever listened without interrupting. I felt sick. Not angry. Not even betrayed. Just pathetic. Like I'd wandered into the wrong movie and everyone else had the script. I thought Mairead had lost control of herself that night at the party. That it was raw emotion. But no, it was a drafted climax. I wasn't living through heartbreak. I was living through a release event for her rebrand. Suddenly, so many things clicked into place. Why she'd started casually documenting things I said, asking me to repeat that. I want to write it down before I forget. Why her phone was always near when we argued, tilted upward, screen on. Why she once asked me, "Do you think I'm more relatable when I'm angry or quiet?" She wasn't healing. She was framing. I sat on the edge of the couch for what felt like an hour, laptop warm against my thighs, hands trembling like I'd been caught doing something wrong. And maybe I had. Maybe I was never supposed to see any of this. But a thought kept circling my brain, whispering over and over, louder each time. If she's writing my story, what's stopping me from writing hers? I didn't have a plan. I didn't have a platform. I barely had self-respect. But I had truth. And I had 33 pages of her version, annotated by a therapist who saw me as a cardboard cutout. That's when I opened a new doc. And I started typing. The first sentence I typed was nothing special. It was clunky. Passive. I kept rewriting it, changing tenses, deleting half the words. But eventually, I left it alone and just kept going. It didn't read like a confession. Or a defense. It wasn't bitter. It wasn't brave. Honestly, it sounded like someone trying to remember who they were before they got rewritten. I didn't write to hurt her. I wrote because if I didn't, I was afraid I'd forget what really happened. Not just the big things, the fights, the betrayals, the way she called me a shadow with a penchant one night when she was drunk, but the small, quiet pieces. The Tuesday evenings where we sat in silence, but still reached for each other's hands. The way she used to say home when she meant me. I wrote for 6 hours straight. I didn't notice the sun go down. Didn't eat. Didn't shower. I just sat at that rickety desk in the guest room of Dylan's apartment. The room with the flickering desk lamp and the chair that leaned hard to the left, and poured out everything Mairead had turned into subtext. I didn't write about her cruelty. I wrote about how I let it happen. The next day, I opened a new Gmail. I called it The Real Jonah. No last name. No photo. Just that. And I shared the doc, not with the world, not on Reddit, not on Medium, but directly. To Mairead. No message. No subject line. Just the doc. I expected silence. Instead, 20 minutes later, my phone lit up. It was her. No call. Just a message. Why are you doing this? I stared at those 5 words for a long time, trying to figure out what this even meant. Was she mad I wrote? Or mad I didn't play along with her script? Was I violating some unspoken agreement that in our breakup, only she got to be eloquent? I didn't answer. And then, 3 hours later, the real fallout began. It wasn't a direct attack. It was slower, quieter, smarter. Dahlia unfollowed me first. Then Louisa. Then 2 of Mairead's old college friends who'd once cried at our wedding. My inbox filled with unreadable subtweets. People posting things like, some men truly believe victimhood is a personality trait, and writing is not accountability, it's a mirror, and some people still manage to lie to it. None of them said my name. They didn't have to. Then came the article. Yes, an actual article. Published 2 days later on a relationship blog Mairead used to freelance for, a blog that once ran a piece called Why I Stopped Apologizing for Wanting More, and another one called You Can't Heal in the Same Place You Were Broken. Her new piece was called The Invisible Sabotage, When Quiet Men Rewrite Loud Women. I read it 3 times. Every word. She didn't quote me. She didn't reference the doc. She didn't mention me by name or describe any of our moments exactly. But the framing was clear. She painted a picture of a man who weaponized fragility, who played the victim every time his partner asked for more. A man who confused being tolerated with being loved. A man who didn't hit, but left bruises in quieter ways. It was poetic, moving even, and it destroyed me. Because for a moment, just a moment, I believed her. I closed my laptop and sat on the floor of that guest room, knees pulled to my chest, and I thought, what if I really was the ghost? What if she was right? But then I remembered her voice in that kitchen, laughing with Dahlia about how passive men are the easiest to reframe. I remembered her exact words. If they never fight back, you don't even have to lie. You just rearrange. And I realized this wasn't about truth anymore. This was about ownership. And for the first time in my life, I wanted mine back. It had been almost a week since I sent her my version. No more texts came. No angry voice notes. No public callouts. Just that single sentence. Why are you doing this? Hanging in the air like a nail waiting to fall. The silence should have been relief. But it wasn't. It was too clean. Mairead didn't do clean. She did calculated. I kept checking the doc to see if she reopened it. She hadn't. Not once. But I knew her. I knew she didn't need to reopen it. She'd already downloaded it, dissected it, probably forwarded it to her little circle of editors and emotional curators. I imagined them in a group chat, highlighting lines, discussing tone, debating whether I sounded wounded or manipulative. It made me sick, but I couldn't stop imagining it. I stopped writing after that. Every sentence felt like begging. Every paragraph reeked of performance. So I closed the doc and went back to scrolling endlessly, eating ramen at 2 a.m., and pretending I was just waiting for things to cool down. That's when I got the email. No subject line. No message body. Just an attachment. It was from an address I didn't recognize, a string of letters and numbers at some encrypted mail provider. It felt sketchy, but curiosity got the better of me. I downloaded the file. Opened it. It was a screen recording. 2 minutes and 43 seconds long. No audio. Just a video of Mairead's laptop screen, her desktop, cluttered with folders named things like tax_2021_final and w_travel_story. At first, it looked like nothing. But then I saw her open the same document I'd stumbled on at the apartment, the Jonah chapter. Only this time, it wasn't a draft. It was a presentation deck. Polished. Branded. With a black and white photo of me from our vacation in Nova Scotia as the background. I was standing on a cliff, staring at the ocean, completely unaware she'd taken the picture. My face was turned away. Caption beneath it, in bold serif font. Learning to leave the things that don't want to be held. Slide after slide, she told the story of our relationship through bullet points, graphs, emotional terminology, and neatly cropped screenshots. One slide compared my emotional cycle to a passive-aggressive spiral. Another one literally graphed engagement versus suppression with color-coded bars labeled Sunday talks, birthdays, and mom's hospitalization. It wasn't a breakup story. It was a case study. And at the very end, slide 28 of 28, was a quote. "We don't have to make villains of people who harmed us. Sometimes we just name them." Below that was my full name, first and last. And under it, anonymous participant, 6-year case. I don't remember breathing for a while after that. I don't know who sent the video. Maybe someone inside her circle. Maybe someone who thought I deserved to see what she'd turned me into. Maybe someone who wanted to warn me. But I do know this. Mairead wasn't content with being heard. She wanted to own the silence I left behind. I closed the file, sat back, stared at the ceiling fan spinning above me like it might offer some kind of answer. And for the first time in months, I said her name out loud. Just her name. Not with anger. Not with longing. Just to hear how it sounded in a room she wasn't in. And that's when it hit me. She hadn't been writing about me. She'd been rehearsing a version of herself for so long. She needed someone small enough to disappear behind it. And I was perfect. Until I stopped cooperating. I didn't respond to the deck. Didn't confront her. Didn't post about it. I let it exist, like a bruise I didn't need to show anyone to believe it was real. There was power in that, in not reacting the way she expected. I think that's when I stopped being her character. The moment I realized I didn't need to correct her version to live my own. The truth was already in me. Quiet, sure, but still breathing. The next morning, I left Dylan's guest room for good. I folded the sheets, packed my laptop, and wrote a note thanking him for the couch and the time and the silence. I didn't tell him what happened. He never asked. That was the thing about Dylan. He let people keep their damage without putting it under a microscope. It made him rare. I rented a small studio apartment 2 towns over. Nothing glamorous. A crooked stovetop. A window that rattles when the wind's just right. But it's mine. Every inch. No shadows in the corners except the ones I know how to name. I started writing again. Not about Mairead. Not about the relationship. Not even about pain. I wrote about things I hadn't noticed in years. The way sunlight slides across the floor around 4 p.m. The way my hands shake just a little when I'm excited. The way silence, when it belongs to you, doesn't feel like punishment. It feels like peace. People say healing is a journey, but that's too linear. It's not a road. It's not a staircase. It's a loop, a pulse, a slow uncurling. Some days I still feel the pull of her story, the shame, the self-doubt, the wondering if maybe she really did just name me, like she said. But then I remember the most important thing I've learned. Someone else's version of you only wins if you stop building your own. So I keep building, one sentence at a time. I don't know where Mairead is now. I don't check her pages. I don't listen for echoes. If she's still writing about me, I hope it brings her something that lasts. If not peace, then at least stillness. We were never good at stillness. As for me, I'm okay. Not perfect. Not healed. But okay. And that's something no one gets to narrate but me. I'm not the villain. I'm not the ghost. I'm just Jonah. And for the first time in a very long time, that's enough.